Hey everyone. Like you said, my name is Brandon. I typically play um, on Sundays. I typically play a Mountain Dwarf fighter. We've been playing the Agents of the Black Hand for a while, and I will have to say it's been interesting learning this whole setup and everything like that. But I think I got it almost down packed. Not too entirely sure. I got a few hiccups I got to work on. Um, but all in all, it's been a great experience. I love the feel of just being able to not necessarily be around everybody like a normal tabletop, but being able to connect with everybody, whether they be in a different state or different town or whatever. It just D&D to me brings everyone closer and everyone as a group and as a dysfunctional family.
Hello. My name is Damon, as Leon mentioned, and I've been playing D&D for many, many years, different various editions, but I've been playing 5e for a little bit now. Primarily, I've been having more fun with other editions or other versions of tabletop role-playing games. But been playing a little dwarf in one of the campaigns on Friday nights. Been trying to do my best as a dedicated healer anyway. uh, but no, I've been coming to the table. I've been trying to get a few different games going. Try to bring you know different stories to the table. That's all I really got.
All right, thank you. I forget sometimes that I'm using a
You're
different
still muted,
setup.
Patrick,
Yeah,
on Discord.
indeed. I forgot that I was switching computers. I had to switch around some of my settings. I pulled up myself over here on Twitch. You weren't hearing me, you were hearing everyone else, but not me because I had not entered in my source. Because normally I backdoor it, just picking up the source coming from. It's all very strange the way I do it, I assure you. But anyway, it's the behind the scenes, the little things that I've learned. Anyway, welcome to the table in the tavern. This is Table Talk, and we've been talking with Brandon and Damon about our introduction, getting into this evening's episode of Table Talk, introducing ourselves. Our and Damon and Gracie are some of our newest additions. Gracie, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and a little about the experiences you've had thus far playing D&D?
Hello, my name is Gracie. I play on Friday nights as a half-elf bard, and then on Sunday nights I play as a tiefling sorcerer. I haven't had a lot of D&D experience. I'm still pretty new to it, but it's pretty fun from some of the campaigns that I have played, and I'm hoping to get more into it in the future. And that is me.
Indeed. Thank you, Gracie. And yes, you haven't seen Gracie, any of you out there in the TV, Twitch TV, or YouTube, as the Friday game that she's referring to. I don't have a broadcast yet, and so we're actually going to be talking about some of the new things that are coming up in our table in the tavern lineup. One of them being a few different games that are going to mix up in our lineup, being one that Gracie had mentioned on Friday nights that Brandon has been playing in, and actually all three of these currently are playing in, being Damon, Brandon, and Gracie, as well as a couple of additions with Pete and David. Um, that game is named The Old Lands, but another upcoming addition to our lineup is a game for 2E Pathfinder, which is going to be run by my friend Damon, which is newly a new addition to our D&D lineup here at the table in the tavern. Damon, wants to tell us a little bit about the game that you have been playing with your friends thus far in Pathfinder 2E, the game that I was privy to sit in with you the other night.
Right. Uh, it is a Pathfinder 2e campaign. It is a Kingmaker themed campaign, but a little homebrew. We're not just doing straight from the Kingmaker book. I drew a little island for everyone to explore and eventually, become the heroes over and eventually start little settlements and become the kings and queens and whatnot. So at the current moment, we are only 4th level. We're about 21, 22 sessions in. We're taking it slow, enjoying each other, learning each other's kind of role playing styles, and getting comfortable with everyone, so we can really dig into some role play once we get a little farther into the game. Currently, we're in the Fey world, trying to get back to our ship, but the party has realized that they're actually 1,000 years in the past, so they're trying to find a way back to the future so they can get back to the adventure that they were originally kind of set upon.
All right, thank you for that, Damon. Now then, there is a couple of things I had wanted to go ahead and get into this evening. A couple of questions I had on hand for this evening's discussion. One of them being some of our favorite moments playing D&D. Now, Gracie, I know you have not had a whole lot of experience playing D&D, and so probably I couldn't say that that you really had a favorite or not. But would you say that? Could you say with the limited experience what what experience really stuck out in your mind?
Um, from the games that I played with you guys, I think the one where I got covered in chocolate on Easter was by far my favorite. And that was with the Friday night game. Well, was supposed to be Friday night game, but we played on Easter, and that was with my half elf bard. And it was funny because everyone else was fighting this demon rabbit. Well, I'm just like, ew, nay. But from past experiences, I think a favorite one of mine was like the very first game I ever played, and I think I failed in acrobatics and was playing as a tiefling paladin, and she fell downstairs. That was pretty funny.
That's funny. That is funny. Yeah, we do a lot of different gaming that doesn't actually make it to the silver screen, as it were. A lot of games that are kind of behind the scenes. This Friday game being one of them. I'll normally do games that are themed to different holidays. One of my staples is bringing up Curse of Straw during Halloween. We normally run that through winter. Um, but we will do a little bit of, I've done some Christmas stuff, some Easter stuff, and I'm thinking maybe next year I'll do a little St. Patrick's Day. Maybe we'll add in a little bit of extra. I don't know. I like doing themed little one shots. It's kind of fun. Um, but yeah, maybe I'll bring some more of that to the table in the tavern as well as we're filling out our lineup a little bit more. Um, as we're reaching towards the goal of becoming actual affiliates with Twitch, which is actually an attainable goal. which is kind of cool. Um, Speaking of which, if you haven't already and you're listening, please go ahead and hit that follow down below. Or if you're reaching us on YouTube in later times, go ahead and hit that subscribe and ring that bell. And of course, go ahead and give that like. And of course, always talk about where you heard this delicious information or had your fun little experience. Tell about the table in the tavern. Very small, but just beginning. Anyway, continuing on. Uh, Brandon, you've had some unique experiences playing here with us at the table in the tavern, some behind the scenes, some that have made it out into public view. But would you go ahead and tell us a little bit about uh, what you would say are the finer moments that really stand out to you in your experience playing D&D?
Yeah. So, um, just to go over, kind of what you and Gracie went over as well. The Friday Night Games is one of my favorite campaigns that, by far, this far, I have enjoyed playing. Not to say anything bad about Agents of the Black Hand, but um, just because I get to experience, different builds. Now, the most memorable is Agents of the Black Hand, which is on one. It's one of our first one. It's either the first episode or the second episode of Agents of the Black Hand that's on YouTube. Um,
If I may,
we
uh, in fact, if you are there on Twitch, down below I've added a few different links that you can find us. One is actually the Discord server that we're currently on talking. You can welcome to join us there. We have YouTube, that is actually the channel that he's referring to, and directly to the podcast from our RSS feed labeled Chronicles of Thalia. All that is provided down below for your viewing pleasure. Please continue there, Brandon.
No, you're good. Um, I'd have to say the first or second episode that we did in Agents of the Black Hand. Um, we were on the ship and we were about to get bombarded by two other ships. So we took over the one that's closest to us and we sent a guy named Roger to one of them. And we had constructed a shrapnel bomb and put it on a dinghy with him. And then we told him, hey, once you get over close to the ship, just light the bomb and jump off. As he's doing that, we're taking over the ship, and the captain, Captain DeVento, he covers the rails with grease, and so that way, if they try to come aboard or they try to board us, they slip and fall off the rail and they go into the water. Um, that's probably one of my memorable moments because after we took over the ship and we destroyed the captain and the first mate, and me and Captain DeVento, we became captain and first mate of that ship. uh, we turned around and looked and noticed that the other ship had been destroyed, and the Roger is now climbing aboard or is floating in the water, so we go to rescue him. um, And then that's what we called the ship, was the Greasy Roger.
Yeah, you can
Awesome.
actually find that very episode right there on the podcast labeled, I believe, Pirates Bay. It's the name of that one shot that
Yes.
later turned into the Agents of the Black Hand. Um, Fond memories of that little humble beginning. Damon, coming around to you. You've probably been playing the longest of my guests here this evening, or co-host as I like to call them. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your, or if you have a favorite moment that might stand out to you?
All right. Don't particularly have any major favorites. Bunch of little stories and snippets from old adventures, but I do have an experience that is gaming related that really solidified for me that tabletop role playing is one of the best types of games out there. I was in high school. Wanted to do some gaming. I was new to an area. Didn't know a whole lot of people. Wasn't faring too well in school. Didn't get get along well with a whole lot of people. Being new, I don't know, being very negative about the experience. Heard some people at a Dairy Queen talking about playing D&D. It was 3.5 edition at that time. Kind of butted in on the conversation and, hey guys, can I come play? I'm new to the area. One of the people that was there was like, yeah, we're looking for a new player anyway. I show up to this dude's house, excited, ready to play, open the door, and everybody at the table is people that I've specifically been getting into conflicts with since I had moved into this town. Was terrified. I thought it was going to be an awful experience. The DM said, nope, let him come to play. He came here to play. Let him roll a character. He's got a character sheet in hand. Let's go. I sat down. We played. About 4 years later, me and everybody at that table were the best of friends. We still call. We still talk to each other all the time. We still reminisce about that old adventure. We still laugh about, being a bunch of punk kids, getting on each other's nerves, and then becoming the bestest friends over a tabletop role-playing game.
That's a wonderful story and a great addition for sure. Uh, One thing I found for D&D throughout the years for myself, it has been a way to be able to connect with other people. Being a hermit like myself, um, typically finding adventure through the pages of a book. Um, well, yeah, sometimes you need a little help making some friends. And D&D has definitely been a way for me to reach out to other people, especially when I started playing D&D online. As I moved away from my friends that I played D&D with throughout the years, time and time again, and you form a new group and you make those bonds. And then once again, you're uprooted from life because life is always more important than fantasy. That's something we always stress here at the table in the tavern. That we'll never shun anyone because they can't make a session because life took precedence. Even last night, we bumped the brakes on a game because someone needed to get some anniversary pay to help pay the bills, get that much needed income boost from whatever. So you need to put in those hours that you normally would dedicate to playing D&D with us. Well, that's more important. Go do work. Go do life. And unfortunately, you tend to have to move here and there, and life dictates things. But in the end, with the new platform of online gaming available from ways of Discord as well as the minutiae of various different online platforms like Roll20, even D&D Beyond has their own little thing, and various ways for you to connect with other people. I first started doing it on a small platform called, um, I believe it was MRPG, basically mud role playing. Almost like you would log into an old
Nice.
mud uh, and just basically, where do you want to go? Well, I want to go forward. So you just press F and enter. You go forward. You want to go right? Press R, press enter. You go right. You know, and every various action you have to type in and get the result. Well, that was just like this, only you were entering all the different, texts and whatnot for other people to make their decisions, and providing them with different macros would allow them to access the very character sheet details that had been worked out before, accessing all of them and just rolling them right there in the chat. Learned how to do all that stuff with Mud MRPG, which was a great little online platform for those that only have their phones to play on. Discord also offers the opportunity to play Theater of Mind, which is a lot of what we stress here at the table in the tavern. Of course, I do also provide a lot of different maps and so forth to help people get a visual aid of where we are and what we might be doing and what we might be facing and the surroundings that might hinder us. Anyway, I guess I have to also enter in a different asking me about chat settings. Well, I'll tell you chat settings. If anyone happens to be out there and wants to enter into the chat any type of topic that they'd like to discuss or have us discuss, please go ahead and dictate that there. And if you have a favorite D&D experience, please go ahead and share. You can, of course, also contribute right there on our Discord server. Thank you. And for my favorite D&D experience, I've already mentioned Orin, so I won't go there again. This is always hard because I've had so many. And so it's hard to really pick out just one. Okay. I should have prepared myself better for this moment, but I did not. I'm going to say one of my early experiences playing as Cal. It was before I became Paladin Cal. That would later be the very Cal that, if you're familiar with Chronicles of Thalia, the very Paladin King or God King that Roku is descended from or has a bloodline ancestry with. Anyhow, he and a couple of friends, they were all trekking along. We were supposed to go on this adventure to hunt down this dire bear. And I remember we had trekked through the forest, and it probably took a few weeks for us to actually hunt down this bear. We would come by different locations that the bear might have been, and so on and so forth. And just by pure experience point attrition, when we started the adventure, the dire bear was a challenge rating worthy of us. But the adventure that set out before us to hunt down the dire bear made us formidable to said dire bear. And then jumping out of the bushes that trembled came this huge dire bear that then Eben and I proceeded to cut into ribbons in our first actions of the combat. The only thing that Darlaxle, our little ranger paladin-esque character, leaping into the tree to get a good shot with the bow to see the actual creature already dead. Well, that was rather anticlimactic, he said, and we all had a good laugh. It was just so, I don't know, it was a bit funny that we had done all this to get there, and it was not fun for the dire bear. It needed a lot of friends in order to make itself, that was one of the many terms that Bryant, he was our orchestrator of Murder World, as we called it. Murder World. Anyway, one of the many times he just kind of got up and walked away. Just got up from the table and just walked away. When we murdered his dire bear, so disheartened. It disheartened for sure. It was fun. Fun for us. It's always a nice thing when you upset the DM. And they put together something and they're like, oh, they're gonna give them 1-4, and the players somehow turn that disadvantage into their advantage. And that's something I love about D&D and the dice roll. Dice roll is key. So to further our topic for this evening, I wanted to talk a little bit about our expectations when we actually start a new game. There are actually some new games that are looming In the distance here, we have Avatar: The Last Airbender that was recently released by Magpie. I had contributed to the Kickstarter for that, and I'm excited to actually get the opportunity to play. That is something that David is putting together for us, and I commend him for doing so. I look forward to seeing some of that in the future. We also have Pete, which is thinking about doing a adventure back in the where D&D began, back with the Dragonlance setting of what is it called now? I'm trying to it just escape me. It doesn't matter. I don't script anything. I just kind of do the thing. But yeah, we're going to go back to old school, back to the wonderful world of Kryn. Sorry, playing Dragonlance in a campaign setting that he says goes from 1 to 20. That he's always wanted to run and never had the opportunity. Well, that's not true. We did play like one session way back when. It would be really fun to do that again. I believe that was actually with a 3.5 um, D20 system type setup. I believe it was a third edition. Now then, I know that we have a new game also coming up with Damon, which will come up into 2E Pathfinder, which I'm also looking forward to seeing some of and also participating in a later game that he's calling his Forever game. But I want to hand it off now to Brandon. Brandon, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your expectations are when you start a new game?
Okay. Um. So for me is I the expectations of a new game is to be easy flowing. Um. It has to again. I know me and you, Patrick. We've talked about previous the electronical world. I I it's hard for me to stay focused. So if it catches my attention and it I put all my attention into it, I'm gonna enjoy it 20 times more. Um, so really and truly it has to be easy flowing, obviously easy to understand to the great gain the concept of what I'm doing and the attention. My attention is probably the hardest thing for gamings for games just for me to sit down and actually like if I'm playing on Xbox, I do maybe 20 minutes on each game. Um, but here recently, any of the D&D Pathfinder or well D&D campaigns that I've been able to sit down and actually give you a good list of the recap of what happened because I was able to take notes because I put my whole intention onto the game.
I often tell my players that the best thing that you can do as a player is to have a piece of paper continuously in front of you while you're playing. Uh, well, continuously with the same piece of paper or the same notebook. So you can kind of follow along what's gone on through the story. Because sometimes your DM takes pains to try to weave things back in. And sometimes you forget about various details, like he had mentioned. But yes, notes are important. Probably the best thing and the most flattering thing you can do for your DM. It makes him feel like his time is not ill spent, as it were. Let's go ahead and pass that around to uh, Damon. Damon, what do you expect when you start a new game from a player perspective?
From a player perspective, a lot of the time I try to role fill. So I try to figure out what the other characters are playing and figure out what the party kind of would best optimize. I know I'm not saying I'm a mid-maxer, but I do try to optimize the party out a little bit, which often leads me to playing dedicated healers. I like healing, so that's all right. What do I expect? Just an engaging story, really. Something I can get into with the people at the table, even if it's not even related to my backstory. As long as it's fun and gripping, then that's where it's at, I think.
All right, thank you for that, Damon. And continuing on to Gracie. Gracie, I know you're still say you're a little bit new to D&D, and we always have games that have various levels of experience right there. Not of all of us are professional players, or for that matter, professional voice actors and so forth. But I feel Gracie has fallen right in with us here at the table in the tavern. Gracie, what is it that you expect when you starting a new game? In your experience, limited experience so far, what would you expect if you were starting, say, a new game coming up this next Sunday, which will be Agents of the Black Hand? Uh, Tell us what you might expect for that game.
Some things that I would kind of expect is, yet again, like mentioned before, a really good story. I would like to get pretty engaged in that, and it's pretty easy for me to do that because I have a pretty creative mind. Um, Another one I would say would probably be like roleplay. I, you know, also again, like mentioned before, kind of like how different characters act and kind of like what their either backstory is or what their intentions are. It's kind of fun because you get to like either build a friendship with them or you're just kind of like, ew, I don't like you. But yeah, that's kind of like my expectation. I'm a very open minded person, so whatever you want to throw at me, I'll always take a positive outlook to it. And that's it.
All right, now I'd like to go ahead and thank you for that, Gracie. I appreciate that input. Now then, Damon, um, you actually have an upcoming game, what you're calling your Forever game, okay? And you also have another game that you were asking me about for Monday night. Now, I currently am playing in a game with Chris and Dan, and I believe even David has joined that game, um, and a couple others that many of these other players don't, many of my viewers are not aware of. Um, as it's all a game that I've been playing in. I play, don't run, just play, which is kind of a unique experience. But I don't have the permission to broadcast them.
No.
But maybe in the future. But you were talking about something maybe on Monday as well. Now I'm not sure if we're going to broadcast that game or not. I can't be certain. Not until we see something about who all is going to be in it and time slot, because I may be predisposed playing in a game at that same time. So, but would you go ahead and tell me for the Thursday game that will be coming here soon in the near future? Could you tell us a little bit about that game that you have looming in the distance, as it were? Please and thank you.
The Thursday night
Yes,
game,
please.
we are exploring a mysterious island that has appeared just off the mainland in Glorian, which is the core setting from Pathfinder 2nd Edition and 1st Edition. But in the Mana Wastes, which is an area in the lower section of the map, a strange cocoon of magical energy formed. A bunch of scholars sent down of energy. It blasted a
Hey,
beam of energy out into the ocean,
pardon
and
me,
the
pardon me, Damon.
oh,
Pardon me, Damon. Let me interrupt you there. Like we were having a little interruption on last Friday night when we played. Um, we're getting a little bit of a moment where when we're not hearing what you're saying. It sounds like your headphones or mic is turning off and turning back on again. Could you go ahead and see about that for me real quick?
Yeah. Is that better?
Time will tell, won't it? Please continue. Just back up a little bit because we missed what you were saying for the last 10 seconds.
Oh, okay, no problem. Uh, in the Mana Waste, a large cocoon of magical energy had formed. Scholars went down to investigate, and during the investigation, a beam of energy blasted out of the cocoon far out into the ocean, and where it had landed, an island had appeared. Those same scholars then hired the party to then go out and explore the island and kind of see what all mysteries may be on the island. Various other rivals that had intention to be hired to do the sailing out to the island, but wanted too much pay. Uh, so now there's a rival shipping crew that's kind of tailing the party as they sail out to try and investigate the island. Um, the sail there was going to be about 2 weeks, and they've been running into all kinds of crazy mishaps out on the open water, which has kind of diverted them a little bit from the main story, but they're inching their way back towards it. They're currently 4th level, and we're about 21, 22 sessions in. Hoping to take that all the way to level 20 though.
All right.
Currently.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the game that we may end up seeing there on Monday night as well?
All right. It also will be Pathfinder 2nd Edition, the Legacy Edition. But the concept for that is Galarian has been destroyed by the escape of Rovagug, literally breaking the world into 2 halves, strewing the stars in between them with fields of magma, enchanted water, and obsidian glass. You can actually take special sailing ships and fly from one half of the world to the other half of the world, but with the escape of Rovagug, there is many monsters that have kind of escaped into the world, and because of that, all the nations have abandoned their original borders and kind of literally teleported their cities on top of one another, creating this massive spire to kind of protect one another. And that's kind of what the party's going to be doing. They're trying to survive and recover the world.
All right, thank you for that there, Damon. Does anyone have any questions for Damon with his upcoming games that he has? Maybe he's actually been looking for players to actually fill in their roster. I believe, Brandon, you were discussing earlier about perhaps joining one of those games. Is that correct?
That is correct. I actually was talking to Damon, I do believe yesterday, that I was going ahead and setting up a character for one of the games, which I do believe it's either I want to say it's the Thursday game, and right now I'm currently in the process of building a dragon character. So
Awesome.
it'd be it'd be a different character that I build. So it'd be interesting on how to play this character. But I feel like I take on challenges, and I like to do those challenges. So it'd be a challenge to say the least, but I like it.
forgive me. You say, um, you you say a dragon character. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what we can expect to see from your character then?
Well, he's. I'm trying to. I'm in the process of still building him, but he will be like a monk, a dragon monk. So it's almost like Draco from the Dragonheart series, and he's trying to be all. He's wanting to be wise. He's wanting to pass down knowledge to companions and whatnot. So that's kind of the style I want to go with this character. Just because it's very interesting. He's a dragon that is wise. He doesn't like people messing with. He doesn't like enemies messing with his companions, and he will get upset and really mad and ticked off if they do mess with his companions. So it would be interesting to play
Forgive me
this
here,
character.
Brandon, for interrupting you. Now you say dragon. Now, are you talking about like a half dragon or a dragonborn, or are we actually talking about an actual dragon?
Like this one behind me.
Oh, that will be very interesting. I'm assuming starting something like a wormling, or what is the expectation there?
So, which is interesting. That's what I was about to ask Damon. Um, is what his expectations would be from my character, as far as if he's gonna start off as a like smaller size dragon and then work our way up to the big one, or if he's gonna be an actual big one, so that way I know how to properly play this character.
All right. So in Pathfinder Second Edition, there is a group called Roll for Combat, and they released a book called Battle Zoo Ancestries, which opens up playable dragons for the Pathfinder Second Edition. In their setting, they had undergone some sort of magical affliction, which has made them not as potent as a book standard dragon. That's where it allows the player to then take on class levels and make their dragon character a bit more unique, but still with the classic hints of being a dragon. So there's rules for collecting hordes and whatnot. But the intention that I have, if you're joining in the Thursday game, is just to eventually have some sort of goal for a settlement that you would want to have in mind, whether it be, some sort of academy for training of their monastery, or a school to pass on knowledge, or a dojo, or something of that sort, because eventually we're going to be rulers of settlements. For the Monday game, if that character ends up falling in there, your expectation is to survive as long as you possibly can.
Goosebumps. I like it. Joining into the table and tavern topic discussion tonight, this came creeping. Nobody home, or David. David wants to go ahead and give us a little brief introduction to yourself. Of course, David plays with us most nights on the table in the tavern. He has for some time. David wants to tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your experiences playing D&D, maybe.
Sorry I'm late, by the way, guys. Traffic was
We're
horrible.
actually talking about some of our favorite experiences playing D&D. So if you don't mind, a little about who you are and what about your favorite experience playing D&D, if you have.
Absolutely. Well, first off, hi everybody. If you're familiar with the show, my name is David. I also go by Nobody Home. I am an avid gamer. I've been playing various tabletop RPGs. Let's see. Now I have to do math. For a bit over 30 years now.
Awesome.
I had to do math. Yeah, I've been playing since I was 9. Everything from AD&D all the way through 5th edition, White Wolf, both the World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness lines. I've played Cyberpunk. I've played Shadowrun. I've played various versions of Fate. You put dice in my hand, you put dice in front of me, and I'll play it, pretty much. But if we're talking about favorite D&D, I don't know. There's so many of them. I would have to say some of my favorite moments aren't actually gameplay related. They're more table related. Basically just, when everybody's having a good time. Those situations where, someone will say something just absolutely off the wall at just the right moment to just cause everything to break down for a moment. Those are some of my favorite actual kind of moments at the table.
On that note, I had mentioned one of my favorite, I didn't want to say the same one twice or ones that we've discussed previously. I mentioned the time that we had hunted down that dire bear and mentioned that was rather anticlimactic there at the end. You actually.
Yes.
So I stole that one if that's the one you're about to tell.
That is a good one. That is definitely a good one. Yeah, because we spend 2 hours, real time, just making, survival and hunting checks and tracking this thing and following its path of devastation, and we finally have it charging at it. We start to make a plan on how to take this thing down. And I'm playing this drow, and he decides to get up in a tree to rain arrows down, and this thing comes charging through the woods, and 2 people down it in one turn, and I'm just sitting there. I didn't even have a chance to take my attack. I was just down before I had a chance. It's like, well, that was rather anticlimactic. And yeah, it was hilarious.
I told you.
Oh yeah, no, because this whole time, we're seeing all of this devastation and dead animals and things that have been mauled and ripped apart and trees trampled over, and it's like, oh my god, this thing is going to be horrible. We're going to be lucky if we get out within an inch of our lives, and then that's it.
And I'd like to take that pause in the discussion and the moment for actually a couple introductions here. One being my brother here, Ninja the Monkey, that you can hear in the background. And of course, Pete, that just slid into the Discord. Pete, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your experiences playing D&D, either here at the table in the tavern or previous to?
Well, my name is Peter Jackson. Tonight I am going to be playing Bob, if still playing. He is a cleric of Goldum, and he's a war cleric. And as far as anyone ever knows, he appears to be human. But as far as me and playing D&D, I've been playing for a long time, but I think probably one of the most epic ones that I've done before. It's a toss up between one that I did with you, Patrick, and another one that I actually GM'd because both were basically alike in scale, kind of, but the one I GM'd was a little bit more so because it literally involved planes of existence. It wasn't necessarily a D&D one, but still role playing. And literally, it was a fight between otherworldly beings from another dimension, bringing in their armies to do this planet, and we were actually fighting to go and take the planet back. And in the end, they ended up winning. But the one I did with you probably was probably the fight where we were actually doing. You had a space where we had each player had our own armies, and we were trying to remember. It was when we were fighting up north. Do you remember that, Patrick?
Yes, you're talking about what predated the Mouth of Chaos, and even Ashes of the Fallen, and now even Nightfall and Ages of Black Hand. It predated all that. Some of the histories that you guys hear are from those previous games that were played. Indeed, even Follow was built on the foundations of some of the catastrophic ends to those games. Um, I tend to be a bit more epics here at the table in the tavern, as some of you have come to notice. Anyway, yes, I am fully aware of what you're referring to. I believe you were led astray by a particular god by the name of Necron.
Yeah, we definitely had some fun with Necron, especially when we got into the realm of dreams, where literally our imagination wasn't a weapon. That was fun.
But what was your favorite experience from that game? Why do you bring it up now, almost 15 years later?
Well, it was kind of fun the way that we ended up doing that battle of that kind of a massive scale because like you like I mentioned, each player had our own armies that we were controlling and how we end up fighting them with die rolls uh, that you told us which dice to roll and how we got to distribute the armies that we had however we wanted. And so it was strategic as well as a bit luck based. You know what I mean? And it was a lot of fun. The only other part that was a bit more fun was when you end up taking us up against the Trask.
I may admit that the stat block was direct, but it was to represent another creature. But yes, it's a Drask it was, indeed. Indubitably, and biting and clawing the heck out of dragons as they fought it on the battlefield. Yes, that was quite a theatrical moment, and I can see how it might have sealed itself away in your mind. That's what I hope to do with every game that I put together to, uh, as it were, provide a way, a place for you to relive those moments. That's what the dream was when I first put together the table in the tavern. Like Pete had just brought up and David brought up, games that we played 20 to 30 years ago, and fading memories, but that we hold dear to them. They, in a way, mold the very
player that you see before you now, and the very person as it. Anyway, so eager to see some of the newest players like Gracie and Brandon joining some of our more longtime veterans. And Pete often asks me over and over again, will I get an opportunity to play once again as a dragon? And here we offer a topic where a discussion was on the table about a player that is going to be playing a game in an upcoming game on Thursday nights where he will be playing a dragon. So I say to you, Pete, do you have any interest in maybe joining Damon on Thursday nights, where the possibility of you playing a character as a dragon exists?
I would absolutely love to. However, it's hard enough making the 2 nights that I do because I do have to put down the girls and everything before I can even begin to consider playing.
Life
As it
always
is,
takes yes.
tonight I just barely got the girls down. So
Scheduling is always a thing, and is always something that we're always trying to adhere to as the best that we can. And we know that scheduling conflicts will always persist. If you have interest in playing the game, I'm sure that we can work around any scheduling conflicts if necessary. If all
I can try, but
as we start our nightfall game,
if I do, I would ask your patience with me, and basically, there's a very good chance that I won't be able to get on until it's too late.
so I extend
As
the
it is,
question to both Damon. I'm sorry, Gracie and David might have interest in these upcoming games. I had also mentioned some of the upcoming games that you guys might have presented forward for the table in the tavern, being an Avatar setting game with that was made by Magpie that David might end up running sometime in the near future, as well as a adventure in the wonderful world of Kryn with the D&D Dragonlance setting, which I'm really excited to get back into. That being a game that I played with Pete long ago that he's always wanted to run in entirety. So I extend the floor to either both of you to discuss maybe your upcoming games and maybe even anyone that has interest in Damon's game on Thursday nights. If anyone is, please go ahead and say now or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. I throw it to open discussion on tabletop.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start off. I am currently working on working on building a campaign set in the world of Avatar, Last Airbender, with the game setting that the game system that Magpie has released. This setting takes after the events of Legend of Korra, so it's brand new stuff that I'm working on. Basically, it is immediately after the death of the death of Korra. And like within the last year or so, and what the world is going to be like, because it's going to be a new one. You have to wait until, generally they don't appear until they're 16 or 17 years old. And with the events that are taking place in, in canon, in the previous, stories that have been told, and the aftermath of all of that, what is the world going to do, and what will people do to help keep everything in line and keep the balance with the thought of this grand power might not even come back. So yeah, that's what I'm currently working on.
For Dragonlance 1, initially I had some considerations of trying to run this in 5th edition and basically trying to convert it over, because what I'm trying to run is a module. Well, to be completely accurate, 3 modules. It's set up like a trilogy of novels, kind of like the way that the old original Dragonlance was. But I'm running it as a whole campaign. It's designed to take player characters from level 1 all the way up to level 20. So it is a very massive production. I am going to have to run it in 3.5 edition because that's how the module is set up, and doing all the conversions for it would be a much more tedious task than be worth it. But for those who are unfamiliar with Dragonlance and the world of Corinne, it's a world that dragons have been very much a big part of their history. And dragons are something that everyone has known, and there have been, throughout its history, numerous dragon wars. But this world has also had its problems with the deities. There was one particular point where the scales of good end up tipping the balance towards them, and the leader of the essentially the world, the biggest nation in the world, that is, got so prideful. He was a king priest, and he got so prideful that he demanded the gods to go and destroy all of evil. And so, because of his hubris, the gods saw fit to go and send forth a fiery mountain down upon them. That's causing a cataclysm, and the gods basically away from the world, or to be more accurate at that point, was actually the people pulling away from the gods. And so for many years, there was no gods out there, with the only exception really being those who practiced magic. They still had the gods of magic. But gods came back during what has become since known as the War of the Lands. And that's when the original trilogy of the Dragonlance books first came out, with Caramon and Rassilin and Anis the Half-Elven. But the gods came back, and people, when the gods came back, initially they were stressful because gods, as far as they had seen, had abandoned them. Well, long story, a bit shorter. There was a gem which had contains the essence of chaos, who was the father of all the gods. And that gem got cracked open, and chaos came out and was pissed with his kids and saw fit to destroy their plaything, in the whole world of Corinne. In the midst of that battle, which even the gods themselves were fighting, one of the gods managed to somehow sneak away the world. In the process, used a majority of Takisis's power. And so for a while, people had again, were bereft of gods, and also now they were bereft of magic because they were no longer getting, even arcane spellcasters essentially still got their magic from the gods of magic. People found a way. They ended up learning what was known as primal source, the original magic from way back when. And they even found a way that was known as the Path of the Heart, which is essentially sorcerers clerics. But they, during this time, while it was the world was also in the Great Mist, some to say massively big dragons would be quite a bit of an. They also invaded the world and took over the world. One of them was so powerful that actually ended up taking a race of beings that were known for being completely fearless to a point where they were stupidly fearless and caused them to know fear. Was that dragon was that powerful?
All right, thank you for that, Pete. That sounds like a very interesting and in-depth. Sprint has always uh, been presented through the writings of Dragonlance, and of course, greatly powerful magical items like the lances themselves and the dragon orms that predate predate the game in the books, of course. Of course, I enjoy the idea of joining some of these new games. So, throwing out there for all the games that have been presented, Gracie, David, Brandon, and Pete. Are there any of these games that from Damon, Pete, and David, I guess, that you may be interested in joining in the near future? And of course, I guess the big question for David and Pete's games is when are those games going to be available to be played? So, Pete and David, could you tell me that?
Um, I haven't. I have not yet gotten to the point of knowing when I'll be ready. I um, am probably looking hopefully within the next month or two. And because one of the things that I do is get players and get an idea of what kind of things people want to do. So I can kind of get an idea of where to take my story.
Indeed, valid. And also, Pete, what about is there an idea when you might be ready to play this Dragonlance World of Kryn game?
Well, especially if we not trying to do the conversion process, that aspect of it, I'm already to go. But it's more finding when would be a good time. I might have to withdraw from one of the games I'm currently in order to be able to, due to time constraints. But I also need to have enough people that are interested in doing so as well.
Well, that's kind of what we're doing here is try to build interest for those games. Of course, anyone listening out there in the world of Twitch, please go ahead and list down in the chat below if you have any interest in maybe seeing one of these games or participating. Of course, a link to Discord is available down below, as well as some of the games played from our various podcasts and on our YouTube channel. Then I go ahead and extend out to you, Gracie, Brandon, Pete, and David about any of the games that are being discussed. Do you have any interest in joining any of these games?
I actually have interest in joining 3 of the campaigns. like you said, Patrick, I just need to know, what days, so that way I can be prepared, you know, when to, or I have it set in my mind. Okay, I need to be on at this time, on this day.
Okay. And what about you, Gracie?
Yeah, I don't want to like spread myself thin because I still, want to spend time with family. I think I'd kind of be interested in maybe doing the Avatar one. That sounded pretty
Cool.
fun. I'm probably gonna get a lot of backlash, but I actually haven't seen any of the Avatar, so there's that.
They're easy to consume anyway, for someone that's interested in the series. But at any rate, yeah, I guess any level of experience is always welcome in most of our games. So, um, what about you, David or Pete? There were 3 games that were presented tonight. Any interest in any of them, perhaps as playing, taking on a new endeavor, perhaps?
Well, I'm already engaged in 3 games here on the channel. And then I'm also involved in, an alternating Monday game with Drake. Putting myself in as a player for another one at this point in time, I don't know if I can handle that, but especially since I'm working on putting things together to be a GM for a different game altogether.
I, of course, offer my services for all of our games that we're playing here on the table in the tavern, as also a player and or an assistant to help you with your maps or whatever. Maybe creating them or utilizing them on Roll20, however that may be. Even as an assistant GM, as we do have a little bit of that going on in various games. Or just playing like an actual player role. I'm okay with that, and I think you guys could attest that I make for a decent player.
Not to mention, I know one thing as there is a tendency to get kind of grouped into always being a GM and thus never getting a chance to actually play. So I know it's sometimes nice as another GM to have said opportunity to play. So I can definitely understand what you're saying there, Patrick. Um, myself, yeah, I do have a lot of time, especially with the fact that I got children that I'm aware of right now, which is also kind of putting things a little bit of a halt with my GMing endeavor as well. Um, am I interested? Definitely, of course, I'm interested. It's just a matter of whether I'm going to be able to. Sense.
Always scheduling is always the most important thing when it comes to. Of course, with that, does anyone else have any topics they'd like to offer for discussion for this evening before we wind down? Damon does send his regrets as his phone lost power, so he was having to bail out. So his abrupt exit. But anyone have anything they'd like to share or bring up about any of the topics discussed tonight, or adding another topic on the table to discuss?
I do have another memory of mine that just came to my head. Um, I was playing a tabletop DM or D&D session in North Carolina with a group of buddies, and again, I was playing as a dwarf fighter. Um, he was ridiculously strong, and one of the moments that stuck out to me was one of the players in the campaign. My name was in the game was Sparkle Muffins, and the guy that I'm talking about was, sorry Patrick, but it was Sparkle Tits. Um, now I forgot what he had
I
said,
like it. Very funny.
or yeah, I forgot what he said or what he had done, but we were walking and we just so happened to walk past a big lake, and I guess he had pushed me or whatever, and my character turned around and I threw him across the lake, clear across the lake, didn't even touch the water, and I just was like, well, that happened, and just walking.
Yes, those comical moments often stand out in our minds too. I had a few myself. Um, Anyone have any of those comical moments that maybe have sealed themselves away, as they say, live in your mind rent free?
Um, well, there was one time I also had a rather ridiculously strong character. Also, he was a dwarven weretiger in 3.5, and we were given everything as far as starting money and everything because we were starting above first level. First day that we were playing, we ended up going into the Underdark, and we came up upon a contingent of drow. In the first round, I ended up jumping over, attacking, and basically dismembering a drow captain like it was nothing. And after that, it was just like, it was just, it was, wow, I thought drow were supposed to be hard.
Yes, feats of heroism, as it were, often also live in our mind's eye rent free, or our memories. Um, I probably have a moment I'll never forget. It's actually been talked about a couple of times here on the table in the tavern. Probably one of my favorite moments. Um, this was actually when I still played a character named of Necro. His name has been uttered a few different ways, and maybe sometimes cursed when they're said. But Necrom um, once was mortal, and this is the story about how he became a god.
Oh God.
So to understand why this would ever happen, first you kind of have to understand a little bit about how he had tied himself to this mortal by the name of Calron. Uh, Calron was the son of Cal. That lineage has been talked about a few times. Um, and um, Necrom had a oath to fulfill with Cal. See, he bound himself to Cal because Cal had saved him when his life was forfeit. And he always endeavored to return the favor for him, releasing him from his bondage, basically, for, I guess, being in service to him, as was with the way of his people. So, that going on, unable to fulfill that endeavor, as Cal was this mighty paladin that really didn't need help from really much of anyone. He had his trusty paladin companion Jarlaxle and his trusty holy avenger and Eben, and of course uh, they kept Necrom kind of constrained in the things he could do because he was rather unpredictable. So that all transpired to Calron time to time reaching out for Necrom's aid, As it were, unable to fulfill the oath for Cal, would extend it to his son, who called his help when dealing with a interplanar creature that had put his party on the ropes. Well, when he was summoned, the DM, his anger was shook, because now Necrom's presence upset the challenge rating for the encounter. So the DM decided to challenge rating for the encounter in his favor, summoning Dreadful Tarask.
Oh, I remember this.
That were among the party was a ring of wishes. The party took to it very quickly to start utilizing this powerful magical item to try to defeat the Tarask before it defeated them. So they believed they'd turn it into a grape. Well, that lasted until the Tarask was destroyed and then turned back into a Tarask again. And of course, we just started right back from the go. So Necrom asked, "May I see the ring?" He handed it to him. Necrom said, "I wish the Tarask was deathly allergic to." DM raised an eyebrow. Like, okay, the Tarask is deathly allergic to. And so then I walked up in front of the Tarask with arms open, saying, "Eat me." Tarask took one sniff of me, decided he did not want to do that, and backed up. So I, using the spell teleport without air, I made my way into the Tarask's stomach, where I sacrificed myself to kill the Tarask. This actually did work. The Tarask died. It was a very outside the box way of doing it, and of course, it was a short lived heroic deed, as well, it cost me my life. Well, the DM decided, Creed, that the gods had decreed that the sacrifice was so noble and so epic
And clever.
that made me a demigod. And of course, my only real domain would have been the domain of chaos. So here we go with this demigod of chaos that then became relevant to my games. And he, throughout the years, stretched and stretched himself for more and more power. And of course, we all know some of the things that he did with that power have brought along a treacherous endeavor that some of you see before you even today. Bringing chaos to the world of fate. One game at a time. But yeah, that's my story about Necrom. Does anyone else have a story about an epic deed of charity, perhaps?
I have one about an epically stupid deed.
We'll have stupid deeds around here at the table in the tavern. Please share.
This was in a game system it was not D&D, but the character I happened to be running at the time was a full conversion cyborg. So I was literally essentially a walking tank. Granted, my particular build was point. It was still quite powerful. Well, we ended up coming upon Brett and decided to take it upon myself to literally jump into the fray. And I did so, and I did a little bit of damage to the creature, but the creature ended up going and taking one look at me and took a particle beam blast to my face. And
Here's
And
one.
die. Okay.
The Goblin Camp incident.
This is actually on the very way to kill the very dire bear we discussed earlier, by the way. Please continue.
So, as we are tracking this bear, we get ambushed. Well, kind of ambushed. More like stumbled blindly into a goblin village. And, being you had two paladins in the group, we tried to first settle things diplomatically. Talk to the chieftain, who you could tell who he is because he was a little bit bigger than the others, and he was wearing a broken flower pot on a crown. But he's feeling all big and bad and tough because there's it's basically the numbers were about 100-1. There were about 500 goblins or so in this village. So he's walking up and he's, poking us in the chest and talking down to us. It's like, you don't negotiate here. We have you. You are our prisoners, and you will be our. So me, being a drow. Interestingly enough, I was playing Jarlaxle, who was a drow paladin. Picks up the goblin by the neck, looks him in the face, and just I can't remember exactly what he said, but along the lines of, if you don't want to negotiate, then we're terminating this conversation. So he snaps the chief's neck, one-handed, and just throws him away into the group, into like one of the groups of goblins. And it's like, oh, there's the crown. We can take it. One of us will be the new chief. And so they just like pile on top of each other, fighting each other, to be the new chief. And we just, well, I guess that's our way out. And we just walk away.
I believe there was some Eder caps that were joined in because it was Brian's murder world, and then
that was a different part of the forest.
Was it? I know the goblin caught up with us, and Evan used this potion of charming on like one of the Eder caps, and it charmed him into like loving him. And then all the Eder caps suddenly were diplomatically involved, so they ended up fighting against the goblins for us. So it was Ettercaps versus goblins, and we once again just snuck out.
Right, because after the goblins finished killing themselves, then they decided to come after us. That's what happened. Because then we were being, pursued by a tribe of pissed off goblins and their new chief. And, goblins behind us, Ettercaps in front of us. We're trying to find this damn bear. And yeah, it was absolute wonderful chaos. Another interesting one was a much later game where I was playing a goblin. And we're trying to get into this town, and the guard is like, "Stop! You're a goblin. You can't come in. Why? It's like, what are you guys traveling with this goblin?" And so this goblin starts having a philosophical debate, regarding, how are we any different? You guys hunt us for sport, even if we're not doing anything, just because we have big heads and pointy ears. It's like, but you throw poo-covered sticks, poo-covered spears at us. Yeah, because that's the only thing we have to defend ourselves, because you kill us all. And it's just like, you may have a point. I don't know how to respond to that. Go on in.
I like that. Yeah,
Grapple was so fun.
it's always fun to relive old moments from D&D or
Oh yes,
various
especially
games.
when you can turn misconceptions on their head or preconceived notions.
I've always told people there's always like a lot of the stories that we have. They're the reason why they stick out in our head because it's unconventional ways to deal with the adversary. Sometimes combat isn't always the solution. And sometimes the fun ways that we avoid combat end up existing forever in our heads, rent free, as it were. But thank you for joining us here at the table in the tavern. Unless anyone has anything else they'd like to throw in before we end up getting out of here, I will leave that out there. All right, then. Well, then, as I always like to say, be kind to each other as we're all in this together. And thank you again for the table in the tavern. Say goodnight, everyone.
Who's got the
Good
check?
night, everyone.
Good night.
I was late I was late coming in. I'll get the tab.
Okay. You got it this time then. Maybe I'll get it next time.